Welcome to the Businessmen and Women of Color podcast. I am your host, Ann Austin, and it is once again my pleasure to bring quality programs to all of you. You know what I'm going to say? Yes, I'm excited. Yes, again, with another amazing professional educator here in the DMV of Washington, D.C., Maryland, Virginia area, who I cannot wait to talk to her today about her accolades and what she is out there doing as well. She is also an author, and so we're just going to have a really good time talking today about what she is doing. So make sure you tune in and stay connected in this interview today. I also want to let you know about all the other interviews that we have going on in 2018. This podcast has literally blown off the charts. So if you don't know what the podcast is, it's definitely something you should look into. We are here to share our industry information, pour into you the information that we have gathered over our years of profession, and hopefully to encourage you, the working professional, to just look at the different lines of work and understand what is changing out there in the business community. There is so much information. I want you to make sure that you take advantage of it by going to all of the pages and visiting all of those bios, reading them and listening. More importantly, listening to each and every one of these amazing people that we have here on the platform. You cannot get it anywhere else. Before we get started with our interview today, we would like to thank our corporate partners and sponsors, which are Cat Sereno LLC, Cheryl Wood Empowers, Concern and Learning, Evangelism Radio, Genesis Preferred Solutions, J Coach International, Nels Tax Help, My Financial Home, Power, STCI, and the Student Teacher, along with our other business affiliate partners and sponsors, and everybody who is participating in this platform to make it a success. So today, again, we have an amazing young lady here, Keisha Jones. She is a 7-year educator with a master's degree in teaching special education from Trinity University. She also has a bachelor's in psychology from Old Dominion University, and she is also a self-published author of her very first book, which is entitled The Pieces of My Heart, and it is currently working on her second book, Love Letters from the Heart, which is another book. Besides developing and supporting young minds in the classroom, she aspires to move beyond the classroom to transform lives in the community. She has past experience as a coordinator of the nonprofit organizations Big Dreams Incorporated for the first chapter located in Washington, D.C. This organization serves girls from elementary to high school and promotes self-esteem giving back through volunteering, training, and then entrepreneurship. So I want you to continue reading her bios because we know that you're going to enjoy all the stuff that she has to offer right there on her page. Make sure you check out her links. And in the meantime, Keisha, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
No problem at all. I'm so glad that you're here, another educator, and I would love to know more about you. How did you get into education?
Well, I'm from Virginia. I moved to DC in 2010, and that is where I began my career in education. I originally started out as an aide working with students with autism. And after much convincing, and I continued working with them for about a year or so, I said, I think I should go back to school and become a teacher. And so that's what I did. And I had the opportunity to go to school and work as a teacher in special education. And that's pretty much where it all began. I did high school for 5 years. I did middle school for 2, and now I'm back at high school, and I'm
Mhm.
really enjoying high school, although it is a bit of a challenge now. Children are not the same as they
No,
were.
they're definitely not the same. But let me ask you though, okay, so when you were going to school yourself, since we're talking about kids, I mean, was it something about the teachers that just drew you to say, you know what, I think I want to try that, and see what I can do as far as teaching?
Oh, yes, most definitely. I have my principal, my elementary school principal. Her name is Mrs. Rooks. She was such a like she demanded attention every time she stepped in a room. And you could even tell when she walked down the hallway, even though she wasn't there, you still smelled her perfume. And it was, or the clicking of her heels down the hall.
Oh,
You
wow.
knew you knew it was Mrs. Rooks. And her hair was always laid. Like she was perfection. And she knew what she was doing. Everyone, all the teachers looked up to her. And I was just like, wow. And my third grade teacher is she's my aunt actually. And so she left a lasting impression on me. But once I graduated high school and even
Mhm.
entering college, I did not want to become an educator. That
Really?
was no, my undergrad, my major was bio. And after 2 years I switched it because after my chemistry class, I said, maybe science is not for me. So
Yeah.
instead, I ended up switching it to psychology because that was actually my minor. And I just love the study of the mind and disorders and just studying who we are as people, just the whole science, the background of it. And that's pretty much how I kind of walked into working with students with disabilities.
Mhm. Okay, and so and through that experience, you talked about going back and forth between the different schools. What has been your experience through those different things that made you kind of change from one to another, or maybe you enjoy one but not so much the other? And what impact have you made on the students whom you have worked with?
Well, I started out with high school, and that's just how I ended up getting the job. They asked me to start working there. I said, sure. I really didn't have a preference at the time. I believe I was like 24, maybe around that time, 23. I really didn't have a preference. So I already looked very young for my age. So considering 23, I looked even younger and probably like a ninth grader at the time.
Oh
So
no.
I ended up working at a high school and I enjoyed it. It was a little rough my first year, but after the first year or two, I really enjoyed it, and it was just so much fun. Like the kids, they keep you young, and considering I was really new to DC, I just learned so much about just DC life and the lingo, everything. It was so much fun. I had a fantastic time, and it was great leaving a lasting impression on the kids because I wasn't their friend, and they knew that, but we just had this relationship. And I even have a mentee that I still keep in touch with, and I taught her ninth, 10th, and 11th grade year, and now she's a sophomore in college. So you know that's something that I can say, like, I am a mentor to her, and that was definitely just because of teaching.
Hmm.
And when I went to middle school, I decided to make a change and say, well, I'll teach middle school. Just because people say if you teach middle school, you can do anything. Middle school children are going through that weird transition, and they're not quite teenagers, but almost teenagers. So it was definitely a challenge.
So, given that you have done all of this as far as teaching, what other areas of psychology that you are fascinated with or that you have taught? We know one of them is helping children who have autism, but are there other areas of interest that you have explored that you found very interesting and would love to continue doing?
No, unfortunately, I wasn't able to really dive into psychology once I started working with special education or in special education. Mostly the students I work with they have learning disabilities or emotional disturbance. And those are mainly the two. And I do have some students with autism, but the spectrum, it varies, and they're not too severe as far as the spectrum goes. So I really don't go into disorders, more so just learning disabilities.
Okay, learning disabilities. So, if somebody wanted to do what you're doing, one, I'll ask you a two-part question. What advice would you give to those who are seeking degrees in psychology based on your experience? And two, what is it going to take for them to be able to teach folks with learning disabilities?
Mhm. Well, to answer your first question, continue going to school. At that time, when I graduated, which was in 2008, I thought having a bachelor's was enough and I was going to go ahead and get a job, and it did not work like that. So I would say that is something that you really want to pursue if you want to be in a field of psychology and be either a school counselor or a therapist. Go ahead and continue, get your certifications, and that'll give you a better chance when it's time for you to enter the work fields, and you'll look good as far as your resume. And also do some either community service, or if you could get some hours in, that'll be great as well. And for the second question, as far as teaching, you will definitely need to have a lot of patience, and you have to bring something new to the classroom. I feel like it's great when students are able to see your personality or when they get to know you, because for you and I, it's like, okay, we're both human. We both have bills and responsibilities. I believe that students do not see that. They just know you as their teacher, and that is it. So when you're able to say, like, yeah, I have a mom, like, I have things to do too, and I cry, I feel a certain type of way, and they're like, "Oh wow, you do? Like you watch those shows?" And it really goes a long way. And then
Mm-hmm.
you're able to understand them, even though sometimes they really don't understand themselves. But it's just better to have some type of a relationship with the
Relationship.
students. So.
Yeah, you definitely have to have patience because they're not always going to listen. They're not always going to want to flow the way you want to flow. And it's really important that, um, because I know that when I was younger, I had some learning issues, and I knew a lot of people in my class that had learning issues, and
Mhm.
the teachers weren't always patient. And it wasn't because I wasn't able to learn, it was maybe the way it was explained, or maybe I just couldn't grasp the concept, or whatever the case may be. I think teaching is one of those things where you have to be very patient, whether you're dealing with learning disabilities or not. It's just a person has to understand what you're trying to teach them.
Mhm.
And patience is a very key thing. And so I applaud you for that. Really excited to see that you are out there doing it. And then you go out there and you wrote a book.
Yes.
You wrote a book, The Pieces of My Heart. Okay, so talk about how you came up with this book, the concept of the book, and what's in the book, maybe. Let's tell people why they want to buy the book.
Okay, well, this is definitely my turning point. I feel like during the day, yes, I am a teacher, but at night, on the weekends, everything else, I am an author, self-published author. And I began writing the book in 2016. It really started from a period in my life where I was having a lot of issues with my health. I am a woman with heart disease, and just by looking at me, you cannot tell. Between the years of 2013 and 2016, I've had some really tough issues with my health, as far as in and out of the hospital, having procedures done. It was very devastating, and it was all of a sudden. My heart disease is hereditary. I was diagnosed at the age of 10, but I never had any issues until 2013. And, during that time, I was 25. I was really enjoying myself, just being young in my 20s, having a job, just doing what I needed to do. And, DC, we love a good brunch, doing all of those wonderful things. And then all of a
Mm-hmm.
sudden, after, I ended up in the hospital because my heart rate just went sky high.
Mm.
And, I really didn't think I was going to make it, to be quite honest with you. And after that, it was just a number of visits between the hospital and my doctor and procedures. And that lasted for about 3 years. In between that time, I started attending a ministry at my church. And, that was where I began to learn who I was, especially, in Christ, and learning more about Him and His Word. And, I found some type of hope And my biggest battle was fear, because I no longer wanted to be in my body. I never knew when my episodes were going to occur. I was angry. I'm too young for this. I don't understand why all of this is happening to me. So I was going through a lot of emotional, things, and just stuff that I thought I got over. I really didn't. And so I really didn't know how to handle my emotions. So, I knew I liked to write. I did, when I was younger, I had a diary or a journal. And so I said, well, I'm just going to go ahead and start writing things. And I started writing. And from there, I decided that I was going to do a blog just to see, if people would pay attention or read or find my topics interesting. And so I did that for about a year, and I received wonderful feedback from not only people that I knew locally, but, nationwide around the world. And I thought that was really, really cool. So one day I just woke up and I said, I'm going to write a book. And I did. And I remember beginning writing my first page. I just got out the hospital. And I sat down on my couch and I said, I'm just going to start writing. And I didn't know where to start or who to talk to, but luckily, this young lady I knew, she was my mentor. And I just told her, and she was like, oh, well, I know someone who's self-publishing, and I can give you her contact information. If it's okay for you to call, I will let you know. And I did, and from there she gave me the ins and outs, and I was able to look up some information with some people who were having classes for people who were interested in writing their own books and publishing them. And it took about a year. And in 2017, December 2016, at the end, I published The Pieces of My Heart.
Yay! And thank goodness you're still here, sweetheart. I'm gonna tell
Yes.
you right now, that is hard. That is really hard. I have family members that, have died from heart disease. And
Mm-hmm.
it's a terrible thing to have. It's a terrible thing to watch. And just knowing that you are still here, kicking with your heart beating just as strong. And I want everybody to hear, put their arms around you to keep you strong for writing your book and everything like that. So I really
Thank you.
applaud you with that. And then you also have another book that's coming up, okay. You still rolling on the second book now.
Yes, yes. I'm writing my second book. So, just to give a little more background on The Pieces of My Heart, it deals with different topics that I had to endure, such as patience, something that we all know that we need, but sometimes we just do not have enough of it or not at all. Definitely fear. That was like one of my first topics I wrote about because that was the biggest struggle for me. And I also talked about the relationship with my father and just forgiveness. That was one area of my life I had to learn how to forgive and let things go and move on because it's better for me to forgive, not for the other person. And just, tips and things that I've struggled with. And even though a lot of those things that I discussed in that book, I'm not in that space anymore, and which is so great because I'm still able to read the book and I can say, like, oh, I remember that. I remember when I was there, So
Hmm.
I'm continuing to better myself. And I talk about walking in your purpose or finding your purpose because at the time I did not know my purpose. But now I can say, my purpose is becoming clearer. I believe that God is really showing me what my purpose is. So now I'm walking towards it. And so the love letters from my heart, that speaks more so about me loving myself, the new me, and my new normal, because I finally got used to being a woman with heart disease. I just started saying that this year. Because I
Yeah.
was not comfortable with
Hmm.
saying, I would say, "Oh, I have a condition." It didn't sound as extreme. It didn't sound as scary. But,
Hmm.
I am a woman with heart disease, but I'm here. And so, I say that because there may be other women or men perhaps who have lupus or any other disease or something that they're battling and they don't feel comfortable. So maybe if they see me and they see me, own it, but it doesn't define me. I use it
Hmm.
in a way to better myself. Maybe they can do the same for
Yeah,
themselves.
absolutely. Absolutely. And so, for those people that are listening, let's talk about just real brief, what are some of the symptoms of, the beginning of heart disease? I mean, how do people even know or even feel like or detect when they're having a problem with their heart? Because it's such a gradual thing.
hmm Well, I noticed at a very young age because I was really active. I danced, I did ballet, jazz, and tap. And, I just told my mother, like, oh my gosh, I get tired so quickly. I can't breathe. My chest hurts. And luckily, my grandmother, who knew very well about the heart issues in the family, she just said, maybe you need to go to a cardiologist and, have some tests done. And then that's where, I found out. As an adult, I can say like sometimes we do try to diagnose ourselves and, like, oh, maybe it's heartburn. Oh, I just don't feel good. I'm stressed. Like, and those things, it can possibly be, especially if, you have chest pain or headaches or just being fatigued. But definitely, speak to your doctor, have a open relationship with your doctor, because that is one person that you do have to learn how to trust. And I know for in our community, it is kind of hard to trust doctors. But
Hmm.
like I said earlier, we try to diagnose ourselves, but we can't. We haven't gone to school to, for
That's
cardiology or
right.
anything. We don't know, and I know we have
Wikipedia is Wikipedia or
or
web.
WebMD, and
It's our
but
encyclopedia of health.
but then after you read that, you have like 20 things going on, and you're like, oh my
Yeah.
God, I'm about to die. So, like I stay off of that. I do, like, because it's just so much information and they have to put it out there to cover themselves. But at the same time, you can't diagnose yourself because every situation within every person is different. So if you need to, especially when we get to a certain age, there are just certain doctors that we do need to take a visit and see, whether it be annually or, however many times that you need to go, just to say that you did,
Yeah. So basically, you saying just go because you
just
just never
go.
know. Just
You
go.
have insurance. If you're paying for insurance, use it.
Stop
We have it for a reason.
procrastinating. Just get
hmm
out there. Okay, so Keisha, I want to ask you to the. I noticed in your bio that you give back with volunteering, training, and entrepreneurship, and more. So, are you doing this in terms of those folks that want to become a business owner in the area of psychology, or is it any other area that you are doing your volunteering and training?
Well, the volunteering and training is really for younger women or young ladies. I really feel like they always need to see Black women doing something positive and working with one another. So that is something that I look for. And recently, I did community service over the weekend with a wonderful nonprofit in the area where they collect donations for feminine hygiene products and bras. And it is just wonderful. We all come together, like someone just puts it out there whenever they feel like hosting it. And we meet up at a place and we pack the bags. Like they have like little hot pink bags with a bra, hygiene products, and like breast exams. And it was wonderful because it was so many Black women, and it was like, from college age, actually even younger, elementary up to, a seasoned 50 or 60-year-old woman. And it was just wonderful how we were able to come together for other women that we do not even know, because we knew that they were going to be blessed with something that we took, just 2 hours out of our day to do for them. And that is what I like doing. So that's pretty much something that I like to do for myself, but I did have the opportunity to speak and share my story there as well. And that was definitely a wonderful time for me.
Okay, so are you involved in any conferences or any events that people can come out and hear you speak and get more information
Mhm.
about all the stuff you just shared in this interview right now?
Yes, well, if you check out my website, www.authorkeishaj, that's KEISHAJ.com, I normally update my website to let everyone know where I'll be speaking next. I will have a conference coming up next month, but I'm still in the middle of it all. So by the time everything is confirmed, my website will be updated with that information. But I do try to do one either vending event or speaking engagement a month just because I'm trying to balance that in work. But during the summer, I really want to go out. And if someone is hearing this and they want to contact me, they can do so with email or, social media or any of those things.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I want to thank you for coming on the podcast and sharing all this great information. I want to say to the folks that are listening that as you can hear from Keisha's podcast interview and all the others that you're going to check out, that these folks have overcome tremendous obstacles from whatever it is. And it is never, ever too late to reach for your dream or reach for that thing that you've been trying to do. If you have it in you to write a book or to help someone else, please use your talent to lift another
Mhm.
person up.
Most
Like
definitely.
some of these people are, I mean, most of the folks, if you just go to all these podcasts and listen to it, you're going to get it. And it's out there. You just need to know about it. And so I want to encourage you to look down on her page, go to her events, contact her, ask questions. If you can't contact her, contact me and I'll contact her because we're going to make sure that you get connected with Keisha and the things that she's doing, not just for elementary and education, but just if you have staff that you feel that need this type of service, that's when you need to, pick up the phone, give her a call, and get her out there to your location so that she can help you, and also touch base with some of the other health and mental health professionals that we have on this platform, and educators. We have an abundance amount of people, and so with the information that Keisha is sharing and everybody is sharing, you should be armed with what you need to do to move forward and have a healthy life. So thank you
Yeah.
so much, Keisha, for being on the podcast today. I truly appreciate your presence and all the stuff that you're doing.
Thank you so much. Thank you again for having me. I really appreciate it.